Visiting Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with German Chancellor Angela Merkel in Berlin, saying China supports the European Union to be united, stable, prosperous, and open. Xi says China and the EU are two important world powers and enjoy a comprehensive strategic partnership. He says the more complicated the international situation is, the more significant the stable development of China-EU relations becomes. The Chinese president says he hopes China-Germany relations can play both leading and stabilizing roles so as to maintain the high-level development of China-EU relations. On her part, Merkel says China has scored huge progress in economic development. She expresses gratitude to China for its support to Germany in hosting the upcoming G20 Hamburg summit, saying Germany values China's pivotal role in international affairs and appreciates China's support to multilateralism. The Chinese president arrived in Berlin Tuesday for his second state visit to Germany. It is the second stop of Xi's ongoing European tour, which also took him to Russia. During his stay in Germany, he will also travel to Hamburg to attend the G20 summit. Two giant pandas, Meng Meng and Jiaoqing, are getting ready to meet the public in Berlin. They have arrived in the German capital last week. The Berlin Zoo is busy preparing for the opening ceremony of a panda garden scheduled for Wednesday. Meng Meng, which means sweet dream, is a 4-year-old female bear, while Jiaoqing, meaning darling, is a 7-year-old male. According to Chinese panda keeper, the pair is fast getting accustomed to new environment.
They were calm and quiet on the first day in Berlin. They are generally in good condition.
Dr. Andreas, senior veterinarian at the Berlin Zoo, says the pair are very healthy.
They are very healthy. They obviously feel very good here. You can see them climbing around inside. It's at the moment not yet for the visitors, but next week we will open this. I think everything is okay, and we are very happy with the animals.
And we are very proud that we have now 2 pandas here from China. So I think it's very important for Germany also, and I think it's a very good for the relationship between China and Germany and for the European Union.
The soon-to-be-ready Chinese-style panda garden has been built on the site of the previous one, but much bigger, about 5,500 square meters. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin have pledged to build strong China-Russia ties into a balanced stone for world peace and stability. The two heads of state Tuesday agreed to make the bilateral ties, described by President Xi as currently the best ever in history, to become a booster for development of their each own country. During talks at the Kremlin, Xi told Putin that a bilateral comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination is in the fundamental interests of the two countries and peoples. Putin echoed Xi, saying that the two countries have developed a high-standard relationship with a sound cooperation mechanism, and also the two heads of state have developed a very good working relationship and a profound friendship. He said that Xi's visit has achieved a complete success, and the Russian side is willing to work with the Chinese side to continue to strengthen their comprehensive strategic partnership coordination. After the summit talks, President Xi was awarded by Putin the highest order of Russia, or the Order of St. Andrew, the Apostle the First called. The two heads of state signed a joint statement on further deepening the China-Russia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership coordination, and another joint statement on current world situation and major international issues. They ratified the 2017 to 2020 implementation guideline for the China-Russia Treaty of Good Neighborliness, Friendship and Cooperation. The two leaders witnessed the exchange of cooperation documents between their government officials and a joint statement on the Korean Peninsula between the two foreign ministries. Xi's Russia tour was aimed at building stronger bilateral ties. It's his 6th trip to Russia since taking office, and the 3rd meeting between the two heads of state this year. In an exclusive interview with CNC, Chinese ambassador to Germany said China hopes the G20 Hamburg summit will lead to consensus on openness and cooperation among member states.
Chinese ambassador to Germany Shi Mingde said China hopes the G20 Hamburg summit will give a positive sign to the world.
The international community needs to send a united, positive signal more than ever. We have to continue with the achievements and the topics during the previous G20 summit in China's Hangzhou. We also hope the international community can enhance cooperation, defend multilateralism and the multilateral order, act against the trade protectionism. We also hope the world economy can grow through innovation, which can become a major driving force of growth. We hope the international community can cooperate to achieve win-win results and object unilateralism, especially as the world economy is still struggling to recover.
China hosted the G20 Hangzhou summit in 2016. She said China will now spare no efforts in supporting the G20 Hamburg summit to achieve success and strengthen China-Germany cooperation under the G20 framework. She added China and Germany can cooperate to maintain the consistency of G20 summits and take the new global circumstances into account to achieve a new consensus in the Hamburg summit.
As the host country of this year's summit, Germany has proposed their ideas, including enhancing cooperations with Africa and the cooperations in the digital industries. China and Germany can cooperate closely in these issues and enhance communication. We hope the international community can achieve new consensus and fruits in the Hamburg summit.
A total of 47 people have died and 22 are missing after floods continue to hit central China's Hunan province and the southern Guangxi Zhuang autonomous region. In Hunan, local authorities on Tuesday said floods triggered by rain have left 27 people dead and 8 missing. Heavy rain started on June 22nd, triggering floods. More than 1.2 million people have been forced to evacuate. Over 38,000 homes have collapsed, and nearly 880,000 hectares of crops have been damaged. Water in Dongting Lake and several major rivers have risen above warning levels. Some 15 people have been sent to the front line, and over $23.6 million has been allocated as disaster relief. Lighter rain is forecast in Hunan for the next few days, but heavy rain is still expected in some areas. In Guangxi, the rains which started Saturday have left 20 people dead and 14 missing. Some 92,000 residents have been relocated as a result, and around 20,000 houses have collapsed or been damaged. The disaster has inflicted direct economic losses of $680 million. Local authorities have allocated nearly $1.5 million as aid to the affected areas. Now let's take a look at some economic news in China.
More efforts will be made to increase analysis and precaution of financial risk in fields including banks, asset quality, capital markets, usage of insurance capital, and illegal fundraising. That's according to the China Financial Stability Report 2017 released by the People's Bank of China. Coordination among financial regulators will be improved to cover regulation of major financial institutions, infrastructure, and business statistics. The government will also improve the deposit insurance system and explore market-oriented methods for financial institutions to deal with risk. The report also reiterated that China would continue to implement a prudent and neutral monetary policy to maintain proper liquidity. Official data showed service trade deficit rose 17.9% year-on-year in the first 5 months of the year to 688.75 billion yuan, and that's about $101 billion. The Ministry of Commerce said the deficit came mainly from tourism, transportation, and uses of intellectual property rights, while consulting, information, and processing service sectors saw a surplus. Exports of services rose 4.6% to 567.94 billion yuan, and imports rose 11.5% to 1.26 trillion yuan in the first 5 months. According to China's top economic planner, the country will accelerate the use of natural gas to combat pollution. The National Development and Reform Commission said China will promote efficient, large-scale use of natural gas in sectors including industrial field gas-fired power and transportation. Natural gas consumption will be brought up to around 10% of the country's energy mix by 2020. Pricing mechanisms will also be improved. China plans to cut its carbon emissions per unit of GDP by 60 to 65% from 2005 levels by 2030 and raise the share of non-fossil energy to about 20%. The country has issued guidelines on the sharing economy. According to the top economic planner and other 7 government departments, the government will encourage innovation on sharing while regulating the sector in a tolerant and prudent manner. More sophisticated regulations will govern different sharing sectors, reduce barriers to market entry, and guard against risk. There will be well-defined rights and responsibilities for stakeholders, and third-party platforms will address consumer complaints. The government expects orderly competition and will regulate monopolies. Competitive firms will receive support in expanding overseas. China will open more government and public data into the market to improve efficiency. Specific employment and taxation policies will be developed to assure the sharing economy's growth.
Despite public worries about China-U.S. relations in Trump's era, CEO of Principal Financial Group believes it is not a president, but the people of the two countries that will ultimately define the success of the China-U.S. relations.
The way I would think about it is not so much the Trump era. I would like to think about it as the era of the Chinese and American people because of our mutual dependencies on one another. You have a very large economy that is going to benefit greatly from U.S. exported products. And I have no doubt that the U.S. economy is going to benefit from the significant Chinese exports. So it only makes sense that we have a healthy and vibrant trade relationship between China and the U.S. And no matter who the president is, it really gets down to the consumers, right? You have corporations and you have individuals. They're the ones that are consuming these products in China and in the U.S. And they'll ultimately decide what the success is of the U.S.-China trade relationship. And I would tell you, from my vantage point, I think it'll be incredibly positive for both countries.
U.S. goods and services trade with China totaled an estimated $648.2 billion in 2016, with China ranking as the largest goods trading partner of the U.S. Moreover, Chinese companies invested a record $46 billion in the U.S. in 2016, tripling the amount in 2015 and representing a tenfold increase compared to 5 years ago. While some U.S. companies have voiced concerns about China's business environment in recent years, Houston views the issue in a two-way context.
Not only did the U.S. companies express concern and challenges, but you know what? Those same Chinese companies expressed similar challenges about doing business in the U.S. So we both mutually have to learn how to work with one another. But again, I think if we stick to it and we're persistent, and we add good value, and there's good transparency, and there's a good cooperation and partnership, then we'll see more Chinese companies doing business in the U.S. and more U.S. companies doing business in China. And it doesn't happen overnight. These are things that foster long-standing relationships and understanding, because sometimes we don't always communicate as clearly and as transparently as we need to.
Principal set up an office in China in early 1990s and created an asset management company together with China Construction Bank in 2005, which managed assets over $44 billion by the end of 2015. The importance of patience and resilience is well exemplified by Principal's persistence in Chinese market over the last 2 decades.
China represents a tremendous amount of growth. If you think about the challenges in China, they're very similar to the U.S. You have 1.3 billion in population. Yeah. You have a society that is growing older and gray, and they're going to need products and services that not only are used to accumulate wealth, but perhaps one of the most important elements of the strategy are the products and services that allow them to generate income into retirement. And the more income that can be generated in retirement, the less strain that'll have on the Chinese government through taxes. And so you can see there's a very natural reason why the appropriate officials in China would want to tap into the knowledge, the expertise, the products, the services, the investment prowess and techniques to allow the government not to have so much burden for the retirees of great Chinese companies.
Pension management industry is not only about reducing fiscal burden for the government or providing alternative retirement plans for individuals, it also has a great meaning for the whole economy. In developed economies like the U.S. and Japan, pension funds played a critical role in providing long-term strategic investments, which is essential for long-term projects like infrastructure programs.
You want long-term strategic investors because it helps fuel growth in equities, fixed income, commercial real estate, hard assets, infrastructure investments. And what's the beauty of that is you're aligning the asset with the liability. 30-year liability, 30-year asset. Everyone wins.
Besides, long-term strategic investors are also indispensable for financial stability.
What you can avoid by having those long-term strategic investments is the volatility in the market. Now, that doesn't mean you'll be guaranteed you won't have volatility, but clearly you have the benefit of a much more stable economy when you can make those long-term strategic investments.
China and Finland are seeing closer business cooperation. A group of Finnish firms are starting a major push into the Chinese market and setting up joint ventures.
PKC Group is a vehicle technology company focusing on designing and producing wiring systems for commercial vehicles. The group has 40% of global market share and its annual output value reaches $1 billion. PKC believes the upgrading of the Chinese transportation sector will be a starting point for energy efficiency. Currently, PKC has two joint ventures in Danyang of Jiangsu Province and Hefei of Anhui Province, respectively. In 2014, PKC's operation in China accounted for only 5% of its turnover, but it reached 10% in 2015 and will rise to 15% this year.
First of all, China is a big market. About 1/3 or even, depending on the definition, almost half of the commercial vehicles are produced in China, if you look at the volume point of view. So it's a big market. And secondly, government has taken very strict actions on environmental pollution, so the emission standards are getting higher. They are looking at the logistic efficiency and other elements that makes it favorable for PKC to come in.
To continue strengthening and expanding their businesses in China, many Finnish large companies have also studied the trend of the country's economic development and adjusted their own strategies. These companies are mainly in wood, pump, machinery, and telecommunications industries. Furthermore, many Finnish gaming, tourism, and design companies are also optimistic about the Chinese market. Angry Birds maker Rovio is known as the hope of Finland after the fall of Nokia mobile business. The company has turned losses into profits and eyes the Chinese market.
Well, the movie has definitely been a great success in China. We're extremely happy about the results and hope that also the Chinese people and families are happy about that. But we've seen a lot of improvement in our consumer products licensing business in China during the past year, and I think the results are coming out now as well. So I believe that is doing very well at the moment. And of course, from the game side, I assume that Wilhelm has been also replying to certain questions, but the games are doing very well in China as well. There are a huge amount of downloads. Angry Birds 2, which was released last summer in the end of July, has been a very successful game in China as well. So we believe that we have a good stand in China at the moment, and of course we want to be in China, and we see that there is still a lot of potential as well to grow.
Analysts believe that China and Finland have many advantages in business cooperation, with stable political relation and high industrial complementarity.
But also, I need to say that the political level of cooperation and our long-lasting relationship last year we promoted or celebrated 65 years of the diplomatic relationship and also more than 60 years of trade agreement between Finland and China. And this kind of spirit and mentality helps us a lot. Long-lasting relationship, trusted partners dealing with each other. So I see that as a big benefit. And we need to remember that Finland, out of all of the European countries, have the biggest investments relative to gross-domestic production in China.
云天无际，承载梦想。中国南方航空是中国运输飞机最多、航线网络最发达、年客运量最大的航空公司。亚洲第一，全球第三，是南航缔造的业界奇迹。蓝天壮志情，云海谱华章。
专业的团队，丰厚的经验。
Welcome to Chicago. Welcome to the Lake Cook Law Group.
投资理财、法律咨询，芝加哥专业律师团队为您的梦想提供最安全的保障。
Hi, this is Little Chinese Channel, 小小中文, Lesson 33. In this lesson, we will be learning these 6 Chinese characters. From Lesson 22, we learn the character 日. If we put a small vertical stroke in the middle to make a cross, this character is 田. 田 means farmland. 田地 is farmland. These 2 characters contain 田. If we now take the vertical stroke out and put in a long stroke that looks like a tail, this character is 电. 电 means electricity. 电脑 is a computer. 电视 is television. If we turn this back into 田 and put a 土 under it, remember when you're writing that these 2 pink strokes are 1 stroke. 里 means inner. 里面 means inside or interior. If we turn it back into 田 and put the character mu from lesson 24, and still, these 2 characters are 1 stroke when you're writing. 果 means fruit. 水果 means fruit. Now, turn it back into 田 and put in a 力 that we learned in lesson 9. But this time, these two strokes are two strokes. 男 means male. 男孩 means boy. 男朋友 is a boyfriend. Turn it back into 田 and put two strokes and a horizontal stroke under it. This character is 鱼 means fish. 鱼片 means fillet. Okay, it's time to write. Remember when you're writing to follow the stroke sequence. 田 店 里 果 南 日 Bye-bye, the lesson is done.